Hello and welcome. Given that we have two similar triangles here, which is DBE and CAE, so DBE, which is triangle number 1, is similar to CAE, triangle number 2, and the given information right here, solve for both V and D. Note that the diagram is not to scale. So whenever you're doing anything with similar triangles, your first goal is to identify where are the triangles at, right? Here it's told, we were told which triangles are similar to each other. We have the green, we have the yellow, all right? So make sure you keep that in mind. That's always your first goal, is to figure out where are the similar triangles. Which one's the big one, which one's the little one. Okay, so let's just fill in the information. A to C is negative 3v plus 2. A to E is negative 7d plus 17, and E to C is 9v. D to B is 11, D to E is 15, and E to B is D. Alright, you can already see right now that the scale is a little off, which is why we were given that not to scale warning. Alrighty, so first thing we want to figure out is which variable do we want to solve for first. Now, in order to use anything similar triangle, you have to create what are called proportions. In other words, you need to relate sides of the triangle to each other. Now, as we do that, let's just take a look at what we have. Let's say that we want to solve for v. Okay, we'll just first blank, go for it. We have some v's over here, and then we also have some numbers. Now, putting things in terms of d, our other variable, will not help us because they're two different letters. You can't solve for one using the other yet unless you know what one of them is. Alright, so let's look at this. So first off, A to C. I like going bigger triangle to smaller, so I'm going to set my proportion up that way. You can go the other direction if you like. So negative 3v plus 2. Of the green triangle, which side does that correspond to on the yellow, the smaller triangle? Well, it corresponds to that one. So there is your proportion, negative 3v plus 2 over 11. Those sides correspond to each other. Alright, now of our other side, we have 9v right there. Which side does that correspond to? Well, it's one of two. It's either going to be this one or that one. And it's a little hard to see because of the diagram, but this diagram has been rotated 180 degrees. This is the shorter side, and this is the shorter side. Those are corresponding to each other. So 9v is over 15. So essentially what happened is that this little triangle, I'll make it a little more pronounced on what I'm drawing here, essentially whoosh, got rotated up and then was scaled up as well. Okay, so that's how these triangles were created. So that means 9v and 15, those are the similar sides, they correspond. And then it's just a matter of solving for v. So you say, okay, well, how do we solve for this? First off, I don't like fractions, so I'm going to undo the division with multiplication. Alright, so when you multiply by 11, that'll undo the fraction on the left. But you also want to multiply by 15, because that'll undo the fraction on the right. So then on the left, we have the 15 times our numerator, the negative 3v plus 2. On the other side, because the 15s are gone, we just have the 9v and the 11. And then this becomes a little bit easier to work with now that all of our fractions are gone. And you would just distribute that 15 through. We get negative 45v plus 30 equals 9 times 11 is 99. Okay, and then it's just a matter, finish solving. Right? You want to get all of your v's together, you want to combine them. I like having positive numbers, so I'm going to undo subtraction with addition. I'm going to add the 45v to both sides, and we get 30 equals 99 plus 45, and that'll leave us with 144v. Divide by that number, undo multiplication with division, and you're left with v equals 30 1/44. Okay, now that is the answer, but we do want to make sure to simplify this if we can. Here you'll notice that there is a common number. In fact, 6 is the common number. 6 will go into 30 5 times, and it'll go into 144 24 times. So 5/24 is your answer. Nothing too crazy. Alright, so that is one variable down and one to go. Alright, so let's take out some of these extra little highlights. Alright, so last thing we need to do is now we need to solve for our d's, right? So first off, those are corresponding sides. Our negative 7d plus 17 corresponds to just d. Okay, and then for the other side, we can pick whatever proportion we want. We could do 9v over 15 again, or you could do the negative 3v plus 2 over 11. It's an either or. It's not going to matter. Now, because it's less to write, I'm just going to do 9v over 15. Regardless of whichever one you pick, you will end up at the same answer. You will. Okay? Alrighty, so now let's just solve for our d, our variable right there. Okay, same idea as before. I want to undo the fractions, so I'm going to multiply by d both sides, and I'm also going to multiply by 15. Oops. To undo those fractions, right? So then we're going to be left with 15 times the negative 7 d plus 17 equals 9v d. Alright, and then just solve for your d. So we're going to distribute that 15. So 15 times negative 7. So that'll give us negative 105 d plus 15 times 17. Getting a little larger in the numbers, but that's okay. We're at 255 equals 9 VD. Alright, now this is where it's going to get a little weird. Okay, you want to get all of your d's alone. D equals is your goal, so I'm going to subtract. Nope, I'm going to add. I still like positive numbers more. I'm going to add the 105d to both sides. Now, can these combine? Yes and no, a little bit of both, right? If you wanted to add the 9v and the 105, you have to plug in what you found for v. You have to plug in your 5 over 24, which we can do that now if we want to. All right, so then we end up at 255 equals 9 times our 5/24 d plus 105d. Technically that's over 1, so 9 times 5 is 45, so we have 45 over 24 d plus 105 d equals 255. Those are now like terms and you can combine them. Alright, now I would just recommend a calculator at that point. Right, so 45 over 24 plus 105, right? And you get 855/8. Okay, so we get, I'm going to move off to the side a little bit. So then from there, I'd say, okay, so now we have 255 equals 855/8. Let me double check. Yes, that was the number. All right. Times d. Okay, and then it's just a matter of solve for d. Alright, you can do this one of two ways. You can multiply by 8 and then divide by the 855, or you can do it all in one step and say, hey, that fraction's being multiplied to d, so you can divide by that fraction. And once you divide by a fraction, you multiply by its reciprocal. Right, so then you're left with d equals 255 and then times the reciprocal, which just means flip, of the other fraction you divided by, so 8 over 855. 255 multiplies to the 8 divided by 855, and then it's just a matter of simplifying that down. Alright, so we have 255 times 8 over 855. And we end up, after everything simplifies together, 136 over 57. 136 over 57. Right, now before you press enter, before you finish off the entire problem, just make sure that there's not going to be any issues in terms of what you found, right? So essentially, you found v to be 5 over 24. If you plug that back in, we shouldn't get a negative number, right? If you plug it into 9v, positive times a positive, that's a positive, not an issue. Okay, negative 3v plus 2. So we have negative 3 times our 5/24. Oops. Plus 2. If you do, 1.375, that's a positive number, so your solution for V totally works, right? If you plug in 136/57 for D, it will work. I'll assure you of that, right? And then you'd also, if you plug it in here, you'll notice it's just a positive number, so you're good to go. All right, but that's it. That is your final answers. Okay, and then plug it in, and you're done. Thanks for watching.